everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at the 43rd Mill Valley Film Festival. My name is Faridah Gbadamosi, and I'm on the programming team. And you've just watched Test Pattern. And I'm so excited that we have some special guests from the film to talk to you a bit about the film. So we have filmmaker Shatara Michelle Ford. And we have actor Will Brill. The first thing I want to say is the acting in the film is absolutely amazing. I absolutely love the film. I saw the film immediately, was like, we have to have it at the Mill Valley Film Festival. So thank you so much for sharing the film with us. My first question is, where did you find your amazing cast for the film?
That's a good question. From friends. I think because of the nature of the way that this film was being made, I didn't necessarily have like a whole like production vehicle and like team of, agents and whatever, packaging it and trying to make it happen. It just kind of came from me, and I kind of knew I had to do it now. Now being 2017, December 2017. And I had talked to a couple of casting directors, one in Austin and one that was based in New York. And I don't know, we were just kind of in preliminary conversations, and they had some ideas, and I don't think I was able to communicate fully what I was looking for or what I wanted. And maybe it was the process of working with people I didn't know very well. So maybe I wasn't as like candid or as explicit as I needed to be. But one of my editors who I work with all the time was working on Ballers in their editorial department. And he kind of he just knows me really well. And he was like, hey, there's this woman who's like the exact age that you're looking for. I don't know. Also, she never has a bad take, which is such an editor thing to say, but like, he was like really excited about it. So I was like, all right, well, I wasn't really watching Ballers. So I was like, I'll watch Ballers. And I was like, okay, I think Brittany actually makes sense for a lot of reasons. And I then, emailed her directly, and we met up at a cafe, and immediately as she walked in, I already had a sense like of what I knew she was capable of. And then meeting her in person, it just clicked immediately. She's got like a really wonderful, like bubbly lightness. And she almost kind of like floats across a room, which I think was the kind of energy that I was looking for in Renesha. But she also has like these extra like layers of like depth and concern. And so I knew that there's something like internal. And even when we met, she was working through something because the script had really kind of like affected her in a way. So I was kind of watching in real time someone present a really like positive, like light, which is very much her, but also watching kind of like the conflict internally. And I was like, oh God, yeah, this is exactly the person that I want to work with. So that's how I found Brittany. And with Will, I found him through a friend. We were at a wedding in Colombia, and I was just kind of lamenting how I was having a really hard time finding this person to play Evan. And she was like, well, describe him to me. And I did. And she's like, I got 5 names, but there's one that I just know is right. I just know he's right. I just know it. But like, I'm going to give you the 5, but I'm going to tell you that you should talk to this guy first. And she's right. Honestly, I also think she'd be a really great casting director, but that's an aside. But yeah, so that's how so you will agree. Yeah. So I'm quite indebted to her for that as well. And yeah, again, emailed Will. We talked, it made sense. He kind of had the same thing. I met him in person. There was this energy that I kind of sensed immediately, fit really well for like what I had in mind for Evan. And here we are. So yeah.
And then my next question is, what inspired the story?
A lot of things. I mean, I think for me personally, as a filmmaker, I'm really interested in systems, particularly systems of oppression. And I like to examine those systems with individuals. what that looks like in practice for, you know, narrative mainstream films is their character studies, right? But they're character studies where I kind of know, or where I'm interested in examining, you know, power and privilege and how people navigate those things. So in particular, this story just kind of came out of a couple of years of just reading a lot about rape kits. I still remember when I discovered what a rape kit was, which was, I don't know, early, or I think late 2016. And then I kind of was obsessively reading about them, reading about the backlog. And then my reading kind of took me on this detour, and I started finding stories about people who just had trouble getting them to begin with. For many reasons, going into hospitals and then just not having them, not knowing what they are, them being charged for it, which is illegal everywhere. So that enraged me, just the thought that like people need this forensic exam, they need it relatively quickly and they can't get access to it for, again, the problem of like systems. And then there's an extra layer too, you know, there's the process in which someone who experiences rape has to realize that that's what it is, or has to admit that that's what it is, and has to reconcile with that. And that process doesn't always fit within the time frame that you know, the effectiveness of a forensic kit can work, you know? So for someone to have to make that like immediate decision, I mean, that's so rare already. So I was really interested in kind of that moment as well, on top of all of the other things that make it really, really difficult. And then beyond that, I was, you know, I think by like a lot of people, I wouldn't say shocked by the 2016 election, but it motivated some kind of deeper analysis and processing of, I think, how white people engage with non-white people. I think it reminded me of how absolutely vulnerable Black Americans are, again, because of systems. And so all of that stuff kind of coalesced into reading a lot of accounts of people who were struggling to get these rape kits, and one in particular about a Black woman. And at first I even thought it was a funny story because I was thinking about myself. I grew up in Missouri, which I think we all know the stories of just how Missouri handles Planned Parenthood. So we can imagine what it's like to get a rape kit there. And I just thought, you know, if I had been raped and was living in Missouri and, you know, was working through kind of the nuances of that, I'm not sure that what I would do next is report it, because I don't trust the police and I don't trust these systems. So it's interesting to me that a Black woman would. And I thought about how she happened to be in a relationship with a white guy. And I wondered how much influence this white person had, this person who believes in systems. And then a script kind of came from there. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for that amazing answer to that question. I learned a bit about rape kits largely from SVU, because I watched SVU growing up and learned about the backlog through that. But I really did, because it's set in New York, it's a very different conversation about how to get a rape kit. So I really found this film extremely informative of just how hard it must be in other spaces.
You know what's interesting, though, just mentioning New York, is that, you know, I would read articles about women in New York who couldn't get them. They would go to urgent cares and the urgent care would be like, I don't know what that is. Or they would already be told that they were going to be charged money and they would just walk away. So it's everywhere.
It's very, very disappointing and very, very frustrating. Changing gears just a little bit. I just wanted to talk about one of the scenes that I really enjoyed inside the film was kind of Evan and Renesha's like date at Renesha's place, because I felt like it was a scene that kind of set like the like the dynamics of their relationships, but also the dynamics of their life really, really well. Like a lot of that was in the acting and in the scripting, but it was also like, I felt like I knew who those characters were, like who they were really quickly. So I wanted to talk about like what went into setting that scene, because it's the last like full scene we see before we move to the day, and what was it like playing that character in that moment.
Well, the scene itself was, I mean, we talked about that scene a lot as being a really pivotal moment in the film and also in the relationship of these people. Pivotal in that, like, it could very easily go either way at that point. This relationship could not work out. They could not move forward together, but they choose to take this plunge. We talked about it a lot. I think that scene, Shatara and I spoke about it the first time we met. We talked about it, the three of us with Brittany. I think the second time we met. It's such a lovely scene because it has so many. I mean, just from an actor's perspective, there are so many dynamics at play. Evan comes in a very different place than he leaves, or then the scene ends, and that always is an incredible joy for an actor. That's all you want, is to wind up somewhere different than you were. Yeah, and it's also really exciting to play people who are discovering about themselves and about other people and falling in love. So yeah, it was a really, really deeply exciting scene to play.
Yeah, we did talk about that scene a lot, didn't we? Intentional. I think it sets I think you mentioned this, it sets a framework for the kind of dynamics that go on in their relationship forever. And so in my mind, it was kind of like, if we can't get this right, then the film will fall apart. So yeah, we did spend a lot of time on it. We also, I think, what I really appreciated and what made working with Will and Brittany so great is that they were kind of game from my weird, I guess, approach that is slightly influenced by Mike Lee, who doesn't really have a script. He kind of starts with like an idea, and then he gets his cast together, and then they talk about the characters that they're developing together. And that I couldn't fully do because I didn't have that much time nor the money, but if I did, I would have loved to try it. I think in this case, I had a really short script with scenes that definitely had a beginning and an end. And I was really interested in kind of, Will and Brittany knew where they needed to go, but I gave them space to figure out how to get there. And I think for me, what that does is like it establishes a little bit more like authenticity, and it helps them make choices when it comes to how they're going to define, these like key attributes to behavior, because that means that, we were exploring characters over a very truncated period of time, and then also a long period of time. And so whatever decisions they make, I want them to feel correct and consistent and something that they can keep kind of tapping into. But yeah, it's one of my favorite scenes because I was really afraid we weren't going to be able to pull it off. And I think I put a lot of energy into it because I think it's also incredibly subtle. There's a lot of things we're talking about in there. But yeah, it feels good. I think we nailed it. Seems like it, but yeah.
You definitely nailed it. It's probably, the film is, I really enjoyed all aspects of the film, but like there are moments that I remember where like she hands him a cup for his beer and then like he just takes his beer and puts the cup back down. Like there's like these really lovely like little moments that are played really well with like not much in the way of dialogue. It's just really them interacting with each other. And I thought it it set the stage for me to be really invested in the two of them for the rest of the film. So I want to commend you. That scene was probably one of my favorite moments in the film. So
thank you for mentioning the beer. It was a good decision, Will.
The beer was probably my moment of like, I was discussing it with someone afterwards. I was like, I love that moment. It's so good.
Yeah, I laughed for a good long while on set. It was pretty good.
One of the things I wanted to go a bit into some of the like a little bit of production design. One of the things I enjoyed was we get Renesha's like home before Evan, and then we get their shared home. So I wanted to know what went into building that space that kind of felt like it would belong to both of them.
Yeah, again, thanks for asking. There's a lot of thought and time put into that. I'm really grateful for my relationship with my production designer, Eloise Ayala, who thinks very, very, very deeply about her job, about spaces. Again, as I spent hours talking to Will and Brittany about character, I think Eloise was the first person to get those notes, and then we would kind of talk about it again. And so every time she, came up with a design for a space, she was really thinking specifically about personality and and color theory and just like taste. And there'd be times when I would make the mistake. We're also friends. I would sometimes go with her to kind of like shop for things, and I would take something and be like, oh my God, look at this. We should have this. And she would look at me and be like, Renesha wouldn't have that. And like, she'd be deeply offended by me even choosing it. And it's true, she's right. But I really loved is that she had such a commitment to who these people were at the times that we are, setting and dressing for. And I think in some ways, the spaces themselves, and this was the goal, and I do think that she achieved it, expressed kind of who they were as people and where they're feeling internally, emotionally. And especially within the shared house that Renesha have, I think that was communicated well.
One of the things I wanted to just ask about, like as a viewer who just really enjoyed the film, was the moment in which Evan said, the space in which Renesha goes out with her friend was surprising to me, especially given that Evan said, I don't like that bar. So it wasn't what I imagined what that bar looked like. So I wanted to know what went into, I guess, what was Evan's reasoning, I guess, from an actor's perspective, like why he doesn't like that space.
That's a good question.
It just wasn't what, like when he said, oh, I don't like going there, it wasn't what I was expecting when they went to the bar.
I have, I think there's a couple of things. I think Evan spends a lot of time talking indirectly about things, and I don't think it's really that Evan didn't like the bar. I think he doesn't like Amber. I think he doesn't like being third wheel. I think he doesn't like being that social, honestly. And I think that, I don't know. And I think that he was in a particular moment in his life where he was particularly comfortable and wasn't really interested in doing anything different. That's my opinion, though. Again, I have to ask him, so.
It's funny. I was trying to recall in my head what was going on when we filmed that scene and why I didn't like that bar. And then I was thinking about how I wasn't on set the day that y'all filmed in the bar. Mm-hmm. And then as you started talking about it, Shatara, I was like, oh yeah, I remember really wanting Renesha to stay home with me. I remember wanting to like eat tacos at home and like just laze around together and play guitar, and not wanting to hang out with Amber. That sounds very, it really kicked up all these memories. So that's exactly how it felt.
Good to know. Another scene that like really stuck with me, of course, there's a scene where Renesha takes out her hair. But I liked that it was juxtaposed, but kind of Evan sitting, like trying to process the day, I'm assuming. So I wanted to know what went into both, like, well, I guess in the writing of both of those, but also for the character, like what was it like in that moment? Because you do have this moment where Renisha's fully accepting kind of what's happened for the last 24 hours. And then Evan's kind of figuring out where he stands, I guess. Well, I kind of have an idea, but I wanted to know like what went into that, because I really did find that the juxtaposition was great. And I also want to like commend you on, both of you, for creating a character that could have easily gone into like villainy. Well, not but like, yeah, straight up villainy. And it never does that. It's a character that has like nuance and who I felt for while I was watching the film as well.
Yeah. Well, just on that point, I think even people who suck are still human. So I think it's really, it does everyone a disservice to draw someone to be so directly bad or good. Because I think in all instances, we're full of just coping mechanisms, right? So some of those coping mechanisms are unhealthy. And I think that, again, we are also products of like the systems and the power in which we possess within them. So to me, even though, Evan isn't super villainy, he's still pretty awful, even when there are good things about him. And I think that when I drew out that juxtaposition of scenes, I wanted to highlight something that I think is really true, is that I personally, I'm in an interracial relationship. I'm married to a white dude. I personally don't, I think that you're on shaky foundation if you are in a relationship with someone with such an extreme power gap, and it's not talked about and it's not addressed. And if they're not willing to kind of like be a little bit more uncomfortable for you, or kind of like adjust things in their life to kind of bring elements of you that don't really make sense in equilibrium with you. So for Evan and Renesha, I think that they live their lives quite separately, despite having a house that reflects their unity, despite them being in a long-term relationship. I think that what Renesha experiences that's also very specific to her lived experience as a Black woman is something that Evan is not really aware of, and it's not something that they share. So I think that the manifestation of that is, having a moment in the bathroom where finally she's, well, if we think about even the moment before that, when right before they came home with Nurse Peg, she's talking to another Black woman. And that's the first time I feel, in every moment in the movie, the times when Renesha is honest, the times when Renesha is vulnerable is with other Black people. And so it made sense that she would have that moment of kind of like reconciliation and catharsis alone.
Yeah, I would, just to piggyback a little bit on that. It was Evan was really challenging because there is a lot that is lovely and charming about him, but he really fails his partner in a really profound way. I was listening to Wendell Pierce talk about acting the other day. Y'all know Wendell Pierce, and he just played Willie Loman in London, and he was talking about the need. Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Will. Hi, Shatara.
Hi.
We have been joined by Brittany Hall.
I was just talking about Brittany. Wendell Pierce from The Wire, and this actor. He was talking on this show the other day about playing a character and admiring your character and loving your character. And I was just reflecting on how difficult it is to do that sometimes and not get, and try to protect them. And I think that's a thing that we may have run into some when we were filming this, is I wanted so deeply for Evan and Renesha's, I wanted to feel hopeful about their relationship at the end. I wanted to find some time where I felt like Evan had done the right thing. And in retrospect, and when I watch the movie now, I watch him really believing that he is doing the right thing. And it's so sad. And I think that's, a lot of the heartbreak of the film, and speaks to that last moment. I think he's just sitting there reeling and, really trying to put pieces together. But he has spent so much time not learning, not picking up pieces, not engaging, that he's lost by the end of the movie.
Absolutely. I think that, again, I wrote this a long time ago, 3 years ago, whatever. And I think even then I definitely was. We talked about how white people fail us, fail Black people, fail Black women. I would be remiss to acknowledge what just happened to Breonna Taylor and how I do connect that to, white silence, white inaction, white inability to fully engage with an experience that makes them feel icky or culpable. So, I think that's definitely what, I was trying to get at by kind of putting Evan and Renesha in the pressure cooker that I did. And it's definitely true. I think about that all the time. Characters, you have to love your characters. I think it's hard as a writer to do that, when you know that someone has to be the antagonist. But you have to see them as human. You have to give them the empathy and the nuance that they deserve, because you're only just kind of meeting them where they're at.
I remember, especially when we were filming, because I love Renesha so much, how I wanted to protect her. And Shatara, you had to really help me understand some of her choices, because I realized that me as Brittany, I was trying to protect her from making those choices, and I didn't understand why. And I remember you pulling me aside and being like, well, this is where her head is at, and this is why she would do this. And it really helped me understand her mindset, so much so. But I realized from that experience that, I was really just trying to protect I was really trying to protect her. So I completely understand that, especially because I really love her. And then I see Will on here and I'm just like, oh, Will, I haven't seen you since we wrapped.
I know. Ages.
I know. You have a full beard and everything.
I know, it's crazy. It's a lot.
It's cool.
This film was a very heavy film. Were there any days on set that were a bit more fun? Were there any scenes that were more fun to film? It's I know that's a hard thing to think about in the film, but what was a fun moment on set?
For me, it was the day I got my dog. So we filmed in an actual humane society, and then there was a puppy there, and everyone fell in love with him. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this guy home. So it was that was a really great day for me. He's about to be 3 now. His name's Austin, because we filmed in Austin, Texas. And he brought a lot of joy to everyone, and everyone loved him. So that was a great day. But honestly, I didn't have really many heavy days. I know it was heavy when I was on camera, but I was able to come out of it and still be able to enjoy everyone's presence. I did have one rough day. Well, my 2 rough days were when I was shooting with Drew, who, he plays, kind of, I guess you call him the antagonist, but I would get heart pain when I worked with him. But I feel it was because of the character and everything that she was going through. So those were my heavy days, was working with Drew. But it was heavy on camera, but when we came out, I feel it was good. I enjoyed every day working on set. Everyone was amazing to work with. And it felt like a small family because it was a small crew, you know, it was really nice.
I was going to say the same thing. It was seriously challenging. It was seriously hard work, but I remember a lot of joy in and around the project. I was thinking of the scene that we filmed in Renesha's apartment was like a really lovely night. We like it was really exciting to film the scene. Like it was difficult, but it was like a puzzle. And then we would go down, like they dress the set and we'd go down and have great talks. Like it was really fun. Yeah, a lot of joy in that.
Yeah.
Scene.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the puzzle thing, I totally agree with. Anytime we kind of like solved a problem or really figured it out, it felt really great, even when the work was arduous or heavy. So, yeah.
Great. So we are actually nearing the end of our time together. But I could talk to you about this amazing film for like forever. I really, really did enjoy it. And I'm so glad that you got to share it. And I'm so glad that everyone here who's watching got to watch this amazing film. And thankfully, the film will be coming out soon. So we're very excited. If you enjoyed the film and someone misses it at the festival, you can definitely tell them to look it up and look for Test Pattern. So thank you again for watching. And thank you so much for joining me for this amazing Q&A and for your amazing film.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.